Hello guys, I'm Super Ron, welcome back to the channel, and we are back at Autoshack and back on the RS5. You saw this in the last episode where I performed a carbon clean on the engine and fitted this amazing carbon fibre e-Venturi intake system. The other job we've got to do on this car, which is what we're going to do today, is a DRC delete. The dynamic ride control suspension on these Audi RSs is an amazing system. It's a hydraulic link corner to corner, so when you go into a bend, the weight transfers, one shock goes up, it puts added pressure to this side, stiffening the suspension and improving the handling. But when you're just in a straight line, they just work as normal shock absorbers. They do drive really nice on the DRC, but unfortunately they are very expensive to maintain. In a previous episode, we had a B7 RS4 and we completely renewed the DRC system, all 4 shocks, all 4 flexies, and even the metal pipes that connect corner to corner. In that instance, the owner wanted to keep it completely original, but that does come at a massive cost of thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds in parts. The owner of this RS5 is going down a different route of upgrades. As you see, we've already upgraded the intake system. He's also got Rayland big brakes all round as well. So for the price of new front shocks alone from Audi, he can get a full OHLINS Gold coilover setup. On a normal DRC system, it's just a case of taking the shocks and replacing them with coilovers. But this RS5 is also equipped with mag ride, so it has electronic solenoids in each shock, which can change the dampening depending what mode you are in the car. The problem with that, if you remove them, the car is not happy. You'll have warnings all over your dash and a lot of things won't work. But OHLINS have taken care of that as well with a magic box of tricks. So I think what I'm going to do first is take a measurement on each corner so we've got a baseline of what factory RS5 ride height is. I'll go from the floor to the arch lip because we're not changing the wheels, so that measurement will stay the same. And continuing on with the upgrades and handling theme, we've got some adjustable front arms as well from 034 Motorsport, and that'll allow us to dial in the camber on the front. This is going to handle amazingly. Floor to lip, 68. 68. We still couldn't find the locking wheel nut key, so we've got our reverse easy out, and that will ease these out, and then we'll get the wheels off. There we go. Wheels off, and it's the traditional Audi setup with the 4 link arms. The B8s are slightly different. They don't have the triangle at the front. They have a full little cradle, but does the same job. And here is the mag ride suspension. And as you can see in there, that is a little bit oily. All the shocks are just starting to miss, so it's time for a replacement. But that is incredibly expensive. Also on the top arms, another common point of failure is these bushes going. You can just see they're starting to crack in the middle, which is why we've got all upgrades everywhere. It's also already got a massive brake upgrade. It's got the Rayland 380mm floating disc setup. To where it's been sitting, they are sticking on a bit, so we've got to free them off. Just like the B7s, there is the DRC line that comes in on the flexi and goes into the shock. But on these, they have the mag ride, so it is electronically adjustable as well. Same on the rear. It's got the Rayland big disc conversion. And here are the mag ride shocks. Again, just like the B7s, got the fill point here, got the flexi, and that goes into the shock, but these have got the electronic controllers, so that'll be replaced by the OHLINS coilovers. So let's check out our new bits. Here are the shocks. So these are direct replacement, and then they've got all the bellows as well, just to keep them as a fully functioning road going car. And then we've got our cancellation kit for the mag ride. So this little box of tricks. We've got to wire that in to the fuse box. All comes with a pre-loom. Got to wire that in, and that'll just make sure there's no warning signs on the dash. And then from 034 Motorsport, we have their front arm upgrade kit. So this is their aggressive track kit, which means the top arms, but now on the outright, instead of having a ball joint, these have rose joints, making that fully adjustable. And here it is, all unboxed. So these are new shocks. These are for the front, these are for the rear. All adjustable on clicks, nice and easy. Absolutely massive shock pistons. All the bellows, we've got the front and rear springs. We've got nice little caps for the DRC lines to blank them off so no dust gets in, and blanks for the plugs as well, just in case you ever want to revert back to DRC. This will plug in where the mag normally plugs in to the convenience module, and that will fool that. Then we've got all our arms over here. These are the adjustable top arms. So they've got the rose joints on the end. They've got the bellows to protect them. And then they've got the little pegs to go in where the pinch bolt is, angle kits, all the ball joints, all the arms, and all the nuts and bolts. So let's put these all on here. First job is going to be getting this pinch bolt out. Oh, moved. Oh. Well, blow me down. I reckon these must have been off and someone's greased these up because they never come out that easy. Let's try 2 for 2. Giving this one a whack, but no heat yet. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. So another job I was just asked to look at was the front brakes were binding, but all the pistons, because these are 8 piston calipers, all the pistons are free. I think it's just corrosion on the sliders of the pads. The pads are still about half full, so hopefully we'll have to clean all these up and get them back in. And the discs are used, but there's no lip or anything. I think they've still got a little bit of life left in them. And also that's just taken a lot of weight off here, so when I start disconnecting the arms, because if I can help it, I shouldn't need to disconnect the drive shaft. I can leave this in place and just replace the arms one by one. So I might start at the top, but next up we've got to depressurize the DRC, and there was in the OHLINS instructions a procedure for that. And so we've got to go to the DRC valves at the back, and then it looks like there's a pressure screw we've got to wind off. And just like all of them, they are under the spare wheel well, but not on an RS5. Let's follow the lines and see where they go. Aha, found them. So on the RS5, they are up here, just behind the rear bumper. So you don't really want to reverse into a curb or anything, because your DRC valves will go into their blocks there. So there's the little nut we've got to loosen, and apparently that will shut the pressure down. And then we can disconnect our lines. Loosen that off, screw that in. And tighten up. So now all them valves are wound in tight. So let's see what happens when I loosen the fill point. That's just a cover for the shrouder valve there. See how much pressure's in here. That's all. One little squirt. Right, let's disconnect this, take the shocks out, take the arms off, carry on. Right, just took the scuttle off because we need to take the top cradle down. So the top arms go into that alley cradle. On the older ones there's 3 bolts at the top. On the later ones there's 4. And they are in the bay. We've got one there by the aircon pipe, and then 2 in the scuttle. One there and one there. So we'll drop them down. But you can see here, this is the top of the shock. And if you look at how far in it is, so the top of the shock is actually here, and the outside of the car is right there. So they must be at quite an angle on these. So we'll drop them down, and we'll start getting some arms out. And now we've got to get the top nut off. So it's a bit of a recessed nut, and there's an Allen key in the middle. They're a bit hard to get to. So we've got this cool little snap-on tool. It's a ratchet and a socket, but it's got a hole all the way through the middle. So we've got an Allen key on a T-piece that can go through, so we can control both independently, hold the shock with the Allen key, and then undo that with a ratchet to make the job a lot easier. So we'll just put the spring compressors on to stop it pinging. So we can get our new shock the right orientation round. So that is the front. Let's put the top mounting back in the same place. And then hold the shock. Off it comes. Off comes the cradle. Not really a lot of tension on them. Let's get our new one. You take out the old top mount rubber. Don't need that. I'm going to take off these arms because we'll be swapping them. Instructions are all labelled, what goes in what order. So we've got all our bits out, got the massive new shock. We've got these little plastic bits that go between there just to stop any clanging. Then we've got the top mount of the spring, and that actually locates on that ridge there. So that's why we had to take that rubber out. So that locates in there nice. But now we've got the other shock off, I'll show you a comparison of how big these actually are. This is the size of a normal shock. This is the size of the new shocks. So you can see they are massive. And you can see both shocks were leaking, which is why they need replacing. So let's hop these together, just like the diagram. And all together. So we know where our front is, and just good practice, it doesn't matter because these are symmetrical all the way around. We've got our label there, label on the springs will be all at the front. In the book, the suggested preload is 170 seat to seat, and that's where they came preset. So we'll see what the ride height is like with that. Now we can get these back on the car. And you can see the hydraulics on the DRC, how they work is when this shock goes down, that puts it to the diagonal other side to push that up, which is why they can have nice soft damping, but when you go into a corner, you push that down and that sends all its fluid to the other corner. And then when you get straight again, it evens it back out. So that's how these maintain good ride quality, but have great damping on corners. They come with all the little packets of copper grease, because we're going alley steel, you know what happens there. So we'll make sure they're all coated up all the way around. They say a minimum of 10 turns. So we'll start there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And comparing that to the other arm. And you can see there, that is a little bit shorter than standard. So that's going to add some camber because these are the track grade ones. So they are slightly shorter. And then you can add even more if you want to. So if I show you on this one, we've got the part that goes into where the pinch bolt goes. The rose joint goes on the top there. Spacer goes on the top. And then the bolt screws in the top of that. So that's what you're left with there. And that is then the same as this. So that goes in where the pinch bolt goes, but we are fully adjustable. And with our little pegs, had this through there, and these are normally like an articulation washer that goes on so it doesn't bind when it's going full lock. But what these are actually for is they're bigger than the joint size, so if the ball joint ever does fail, this will stop the whole thing popping off. Because if you would just have a washer on there as big as the center and the ball joint does fail, this outer would pop off. So that's what this little bit is for. And then the bolt goes in the top. So just a little secondary safety bit just in case. So really nice design. And quite handily, they're all labelled. So this one is right, front, and then there's a little arrow pointing up. So we know which way this goes up and around. And there they are, loosely installed. So now we can put these in the top. So everything regarding the pinch bolt needs to be heavily copper greased to stop it getting stuck in. Even though you don't have to take the pinch bolt out for adjustment, one day they may need to come out, so we want to make sure they don't. So copper grease, pinch bolt, the top will be back together. And that's the top arms all in, looking pretty special. Really smart piece of the kit. And the massive shocks in there, looking very nice. So the bottom arms are a little bit of a pain on these later models due to poor planning by Audi, because you see the bolt that goes through, simple nut and bolt, but it is exactly in line with the steering rack, so you can't get it out past the steering rack. This has got the actual rack in here and that doesn't pass through. So you have to drop the ball joint out so that can angle right up, and then put the rack on full lock that way, and then you can just get this bolt out. On the back, another bit of poor planning. You've got the nut there and the bolt there. But as you can see, this is this long, and there's a heat shield right here at the end of the bolt. So you just have to manipulate the heat shield a little bit. There's nothing actually behind there. So if you press that in a bit, you can get this bolt all the way out. If you drop this bit of under tray off, you can then just get a socket onto there. So if I show you the finished version on this side, you can see you got brake lines here, and this is the DRC line. So you just have to move that out the way a little bit, and that allows you to get a socket just on that nut. But now the bottoms are all in. Got this side all back on, got all the ball joints, all the track rods back on, all the new bottom arms, all the new nuts and bolts supplied, got the brakes back on. So we are flying. One thing I have noticed is now I've got the coilovers on this side, and the anti-roll bar link goes from there to there. The anti-roll bar, this side is still on the standard suspension, so you can see how much lower it is, because the link is, bottom of the link's there, and the hole in the anti-roll bar is there, so it moves the whole leg up. So let's start smashing out this side. And to get the top mount off on the driver's side, you have your 1, 2 taken out, 3 I've taken out, number 4 is right there under the wiring loom. Not very handy, so you just have to move that out the way a bit and tuck in there to get that off. I had to take the ECU cover off so I could get the wiring loom out a bit more, but now we can just squeeze in and get that socket on there. But now with the loom out the way, we can get to our last bolt. And out. Bottom arms on, track rods all back in, struts back on, bottom ball joints are on, anti-roll bar links are on, top arms are all on, but nothing is bolted up tight yet, because we need to set it to ride height, because otherwise if we tighten everything up when it's droop, then it'll twist the bushes at ride height. So I went on auto data, I've got all my torque settings for everything, so let's jack it up and torque everything as specified. Right, jack it up, pinch bolt, check. So got the brakes back on, let's just double check them torque settings. Wow, 196 Newton meters for them. Let's get the big torque wrench. 196. Whew. The brakes were binding quite badly on the front, but all the pistons were free. These are 8 pots, so all 8 pistons completely free. What it was, the sliders on the pads had all corroded up, so I've just knocked the edges off the pads, cleaned up all the sliders, we'll grease them up, and then that should solve that problem. And now they're nice and free on the sliders. So once the pins are in and the pistons push back, they won't keep grabbing the disc. There's 4 separate pads on these, 2 pistons each. So that's both side brakes all on. Pads all in, cleaned up, greased up, pins in, all ready to go. And given the caliper a little clean up as well, so that's nice and black again. So the last little bit we've got to do on the front, much like the blank that went in for the DRC lines, just to keep it tidy in case you ever want to reverse it, the plugs for the mag ride also have little plugs. There's nothing in here, it's just a watertight seal. Keep the terminals clean in case you ever do want to revert back to mag ride. So it says just to cable tie them up to the lube in there, put that on the other side, and the front is finished. And now it's time to tackle the rears. So the rears are separate, shock and springs. We've got our shock absorbers here, very nice bits of kit, fully adjustable. But because we're going on a road kart, we have got the covers to go over them, so they'll keep it all sealed from the elements. Here's the rear springs, still adjustable platform, so we can adjust the ride height. We've got the caps and the plugs for the DRC and mag ride, keep that tidy. So here is the rears. There's the DRC lines, just like the fronts. We'll release the pressure, separate springs. So hopefully we'll be able to undo that bolt get enough leverage down to pop the spring out. So first of all, we need to disconnect these DRC lines, which is just behind the splash guard. So we'll whip them out. And all out, just a load of clips all the way around the outside. Audi seem to have favoured these new type of slide-in clips, which are a bit annoying. But that has revealed our shock top mount, so that's just 2 bolts to take that out. Our DRC connection, which isn't looking too great. So as well as new shocks, you would have had to have new lines for the DRC as well. And I've also noticed down there, we've got a level sensor. So before I start hanging on this arm, pulling it down to get the spring out, we need to disconnect that. So it does look pretty simple on the back. This DRC line is looking pretty ropey. These are actually plastic coated, and what happens, they corrode underneath it and push out into the union. So when you try and undo that, it's actually jammed on between the corrosion and the plastic, and it twists it. So although it doesn't actually matter, because we could just cut these off, it's always better with these plastic coated lines just to heat them up first. That'll make all the plastic soft, and then try and undo them. So we'll do that. Take that little Allen key off there, that'll disconnect our height sensor. Then we've got our big bolt on the bottom, pull that down and hopefully get our spring out. Well, unfortunately, as suspected, that was just too far gone and it just broke as I'm doing it. It's not going to affect us because we're not using these anyway, so I'll just crimp that just so it's not dripping any oil anywhere. But this is where DRC rebuilds really do start eating up money, because you start buying lines, the flexies. See the flexi there is all corroded through, so that'll be leaking soon. And I remember from the B7, the flexies alone were over £200 each. So never mind, I've got the bottom bolt off, so the shock's loose. So it's just those top ones. Out it comes. Much easier than the fronts. And you can see the difference between the factory springs there and the new OHLINS springs. Quite a difference, but these will be sitting on top of these adjustable platforms, which will give it a little bit extra height, so you can adjust these to whatever height you want the car to sit. Put the little anti-clatter rubber ring on, and you can see they're much closer, but they're a higher spring rate, so they won't go as far. And then it still retains the original top mount, so that goes on there. So now they're similar size and it can go back in the car. And like the fronts, we just need to transfer the top mount over to the new shock. Time to get our specialist tool out again, but it's not an Allen key on these, it's kind of this oval with flats on the side. But not to worry, because our kit has that as well. So that slots on there just like the Allen key fronts, and then we do the same procedure again. Socket on, then our insert through the middle, and transferred to the new shock, making sure the sticker is facing forwards. Let's go back and fit the covers. Right, let's put this rubber ring go up there first. And on the instructions it says from the bottom of the sticker to here should be 110 millimeters. There, and then on the bellows it's actually split at the end, so you can stretch it all the way over. Over there, make sure that's 110, and then that forms back round, so we just need the cable ties applied, goes around there, there, and then clicking this round is our adjustment for the damping. So let's get these cable ties on, get this back in. Like that, it's all nicely sealed again. And on the adjuster, X should be 30 to 40 millimeters. So I've settled for 35 on that, see where that sits us. Let's get them on. And all back on, all done up. Logos facing outwards. I can't put the little blanking plate on that obviously because the union snapped off. So I've just crimped over the end and then cable tied it, so it's not going to rattle around. Something I did notice on these, which is pretty cool, they've got a flat machined in the side of it, so they're actually D-shaped, just like the original hoses. So when they're in the slot, they do actually lock in, just like the original hose. So nice little feature there. But what we can put in is our plug cover again. There's a plug, clip that in, and I'll just cable tie that to the loom there. And that's the shock out of this side. Had the same problem with the DRC line again, that just ringed off, so I've kinked that and we'll cable tie that up out the way. So all that's left is the spring. Now with the anti-roll bar and everything else disconnected, you still can't pull it down low enough to get the spring out. What you should do is either drop it on the subframe, so undo all the subframe bolts under the covers, there's one there, and drop the whole subframe down to get it out, or take the rear arm off. We've got some bolts there, we've got this massive long bolt that goes from that one right over to that one, which I don't hold much hope for getting out, and then there's one you can't really get to up there anyway. But what we tend to do, a little bit unconventional, is there is enough movement if you put a big bar in there to pop it out, and then the lowering springs are a lot shorter. So it's not too bad to do. Once the top pops out, it releases all the pressure. So you put your bar in there, and there's just enough room to pop it off its seat. And the spring is free. And you need to remove the lower platform, and that gets replaced by the gold bit. And it's much easier to fit the new assembly in. Like that. And the torque settings for the rear. Beep. Done. And that is everything underneath, all finished off. You can see our gold spring perches there, looking pretty. Got everything in, everything secured. We've got our blanks on for the plugs. All the under trays are all back on. All the front under trays are on. So we've got all our new arms, everything's torqued up. Top arms are all on. Brakes are now all free and rotating. Under trays on. We are looking good. So we'll stick the wheels back on for now. These are going for a refurb because they're a little bit scabby. And we've also got brand new Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's to go on as well, because the Pirelli P0s are getting a bit thin, so these are going to look super fresh. So let's get these on and see how it sits on the floor. Right, let's drop it like it's hot. We were at 68. Now we're at 68. 68. And there we are on the ground, looking good. So here's all the mechanical bits that we took off. All our springs, bump stops, dust covers, all the front arms that we changed and upgraded, and all the DRC mag ride shocks. So usually you take the DRC off, fit coilovers, and the car doesn't notice. But because the B8s have mag ride, they are not going to be happy if this is unplugged. So our table is looking a lot more empty. All that's left is the magic box of tricks. And all this is a bit of an emulator, just so the car thinks that the mag ride is still plugged in, and it will keep it happy. And it is nice and simple to install. If we go into the boot, this compartment here, we've got a grey and a purple plug there. Then on that box at the back, we've got a grey and a purple plug. So just wiggle these out. 1, 2. Got our magic box in. 1, 2. And then this comes with a sticky pad, so you can stick that on there. And these just hang around in here, tucked out the way. So let's stick that on, like so, and then tuck that away. First start up, let's see if it's happy. No lights. Right, let's take this for a little test drive, give it a little shakedown before we do alignment, just so things settle in. Straight away I can feel the brakes are so much better. Before you had to really rev it to get over the auto stall so it actually pulled away, whereas now it's just like a normal car. You let it foot off the brake and it just goes along, and they feel better as well. When you touch the brake, they actually work. You don't have to stomp on the brake to get them to actually do anything. So that is one problem solved. The ride is definitely a lot firmer, but it's not crashy, so that just shows the quality of the spring rate is well suited to the car. The steering does feel tighter, so I think that extra camber, it's like it's giving it a lot more self-centering. So you let it off a little bit and it does ping back to straight again. But overall, it seems to drive really nice. So I'll get it back in the workshop. Right, we've got it on our 4-poster. You don't normally see me over this side of the workshop. This is our MOT bay. This is also where we do the tracking. So we've got our shark eye tracking gauges. Just want to check that everything's on there okay. And we'll see if we can gauge what this front camber is at. But we're only just fitting on the ramp. This is quite a wide car. So let's get these on. They're laser alignment. They stay on charge. This is pretty cool. Magnetic chargers. Hopefully these will just fit in under the arch. So we've got the steering wheel locked straight ahead. Quite handy with a flat bottom steering wheel that it locks it flat. We've got our lasers on. These numbers need to be about the same on the rear. And we are showing maybe half a degree. This side, exactly the same, half a degree. So we are still nice and straight. So let's just check on this camber. So we've got the wheel alignment data up on the computer, sport suspension with adaptive damping system, that's us. So toe in on the front should be 0 degrees and 20 minutes, plus or minus 10 minutes. So it could be 0.1 or 0.3, but ideally 0.2. And camber on the front, 1 degree, 18 minutes, plus or minus 23 minutes. So between 1 and 1.5 on the camber. And if we just check our camber, got it reset on the ramp. Our camber is, you can see the bubble. The camber is showing just under 2 degrees. On this side, just under 2 degrees. So from that check, we can see that the camber is a little bit more aggressive than factory specifications. But these are motorsport arms, so they're designed to add camber, dial in camber for better grip on corners. So we're both exactly even, we're about 1.8 degrees. Factory specifications is about 1 degree, so we're only just over factory, but now we can dial it in more if we want for track work. The toe in and out, we are toeing out ever so slightly, and the factory specifications wants us just to be on the inside of 0 on toe in. So we've just got to give the track rod arms a little tweak. And this isn't necessarily because we've got modified arms on, even just a fraction of a millimetre of a new standard arm can put the tracking out. So that's why we always do a wheel alignment on any suspension work, because it's nice and easy for us to check here. So about 1.8 degrees of camber we're happy with. We just need to get this tracking just on the toe in of 0. So that's the lock nut loosened off. And the thing that will set you aside from the pros is releasing the boot. Because if you have this clamped to this shaft, which we're going to be turning, as this goes round, if this is still clamped, that will ripple all this up and eventually crack and split. So because we've got the clip off, the boot can spin freely. And now we can adjust the tracking to what we want. As you can see, as I move it, the line moves with it. And all done. So we're 0.2 toeing in, 0.2 toeing in, and just making sure we're still parallel. We're now on 11 there, and 11 there. We are good. And whip the wheel back off, because now I know my camber is happy and even both sides. I've whipped the rose joints off, they're all snugged up, and now we can put our 034 Motorsport rubber covers on it. So we've got to try and squeeze these over somehow. I think a lot of lube will be required. And then it also says to put a little dab of Loctite that they supplied on the securing bolt on the top. So let's lube these up and try and get that through that hole. And there they are, all protected. Doesn't look quite so racy now, but that'll be much better for road use, because all the water and dirt flung up off the wheel would have just sat on the top of those rose joints and knock them out straight away. So this side done, do the same to the other side. Shiny and all nice and safe. And just done code scan of the car, 32 modules on this, all clear, including the most important one we're looking for, wheel dampening electronics code 0. So that little magic box in the back has worked perfectly. The car's not upset that it hasn't got mag ride anymore. And just in time to include in the video, we've just picked up the wheels from Wheelhouse. We've just had them all refurbed with the new Michelin's put on the back, and they look stunning. They're all corroded and curbed, and now they are pristine. Looking as good as new. Wheels are back on, all torqued up and ready to go. I've just hung the tracking gauges back on it again, and everything is as we left it. So like I said earlier, we've got the wheels to be refurbed, new tyres to go on, and then what we'll do, we'll give it back to the customer for a little while, he'll put some miles on it, let everything settle in, and then we'll recommend going for a full 4-wheel alignment, because they can dial in the front camber, the rear camber, front and rear tracking, and get it set up exactly how he likes it. So this episode was a little bit different to normal. Normally we're OE, genuine parts all the way, but in this instance, this just makes sense. This car is being more tailored to a track performance car, so it makes sense to upgrade as he needed to replace things. And because he's gone to the very top end of coilovers, it is actually a really comfortable ride. It's not crashy like some, and with all the adjustment everywhere, even to the damping, he can fine tune it to exactly how he wants it. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Make sure you do give it a like. We've been speaking to the customer and he's got some more upgrades that he wants to do this in the future. So hopefully we'll see it again on the channel. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to get lots more RS content. But until then, make sure you have fun.